Hello guys, this is Joseph from Jouleconcepts. I'm excited to be here today. I'm so thankful for you guys. I'm sorry for last week. I was really down with sickness, with malaria, but I'm fine today. I'm happy, I'm fine, thank God. In this tutorial, I'm quickly going to give us a quick tip about how to turn any object in Cinema 4D into a default state. Alright, that is what this tutorial is going to be about. I don't know if we have been in this situation whereby we bring in an object and we have to go back to the attribute manager to start tweaking the setting to whatever setting that you want. So instead of you having that, there is a way you can change it so that anytime you start up Cinema 4D and bring up this object, it takes the default setting that you have set. So this works pretty much for every object in Cinema 4D. So I'm going to show you and quickly go about that. So it's just a very simple thing. So let's make use of circle, for instance, or if we bring in circle and I hit NB on my keyboard. NB, by the way, is changing this visual style to wireframe and shaded with line. It's the same thing as going to your display. Then from your display you go to Gora shading with line. So if you notice, by default, every time you bring up sphere, this is what you get to have, this type of sphere. So is there a way for me to do it in such a way that anytime I bring up spheres, I don't have this type of sphere, I don't have this standard mode of sphere, I can change this information here. So this is how you do that. Once you have changed this to whatever you want, so if for instance most of the time you work with icosahedron, you work more with icosahedron every time you make use of sphere, you can just set this and make it your default state. So anytime you bring in sphere, even if you close this drawing or close Cinema 4D and reopen, it takes this setting. So how do you go about that? This is how you go about. Very simple. Once you select the object and change it to whatever state you want, you could even change the setting. So if you don't want 100 centimeter, maybe I want to bring in 20 centimeter. Every time I bring in this sphere, I want it to be 20 centimeter wide. Then I'll set everything that I want. Then I can also set the segment. So if you want to work with 12 segments to start with, every time you bring in the object, just do all your settings. So once you're done doing the setting, make sure the object is selected. You go to edit here. So once you go to edit, you click on this. Sorry about that. So once you go to edit, you go to set as default. So as soon as you do that, it asks you that this object will be set as default. Do you want to proceed? So you say yes. So once you click on yes, that is set. So anytime if I delete this now and I bring in my sphere, it's going to be this. It's going to be icosahedron, has 20 centimeter, has this object. So I hope that makes sense. That's just everything about it. And if you can take this knowledge and bring it to every other object in the Cinema 4D, fine, you have everything. So I'm going to bring this thing a step further. If you go to your MoGraph, you notice if you bring up your cloner, for instance, and you want to clone an object. So let me bring this sphere. Now I'm going to make this sphere bigger and change it to 24, for instance, and bring this to standard. So this is going to be the object. So I'm going to call this object. Then this is going to be the clone. So the clone is the smaller one, the object is the bigger one. So I'm going to hide that for a moment. Now notice if you bring this clone into this cloner, by default you have the distribution to be linear. That is the default state for every cloner. And also if I'm to bring in matrix, the default state for matrix is grid array, and all the settings are there. You can change this to whatever you want. So if I want my cloner to, every time I bring up my cloner, to always be, instead of the mode being linear, I want it to be object mode. Every time I bring up this, I can do that. So let me delete this, for instance. So if I go to my cloner and change this to object, for instance, and also another thing I do is that if you bring this as your object, notice what happens. It distributes these spheres on the vertex level, and this is really this could be a problem for you if you are working with very high subdivision. And I've kind of had an issue several times where I will do this and it's going to hang my system, and the only thing I have to do is just to close in number 4D, and every time I do that I had issues always. So what I eventually, when I learned this, then what I do is just to change this mode from vertex to surface. So I'm not going to have this. Now the reason why we do this is because if you have vertex mode and your subdivision here is so much, let's say 60 for instance, can you see my system becomes slow? And let's take this back to, okay, so if I'm to bring this back here, can you see what is happening? It's taking quite a ton of time before it calculates, and you have this many cloned objects on this interface, and this could be a problem for you. So how do we go about that? So what I do is to change this using that technique, changing it from vertex mode to surface. So we start from there. So you can set your count. Maybe I want to have a total count of 50 for instance, or even 100. So once I'm done with this setting, then I will select the cloner, go to edit mode, then set as default, and that's going to be my default. So anytime I bring up cloner, it's going to bring the mode to object and also set this to surface. So let me close this drawing. So I'm going to do control or command W to close this. So I'm going to say no. So this is now a new drawing. This is like a fresh drawing. So if I'm to bring this object, for instance, if I'm to bring this smaller this cube and scale this down, then bring up sphere. Remember the setting we had, so it still remembers that. If I hit NB, notice this is the setting I had for this sphere. Okay, so I'm going to hide this sphere for instance, then I'm going to bring this back, cloner. Notice what happened to the cloner. The setting has now changed to object mode, so it's asking me to put in the object. Once I put in this object, now what I have now is surface, not this anymore. So if I bring this as a child and I make this sphere, notice what happens. So I will not have these issues anymore bogging down my system, and that is pretty much everything you can do with this. So I just thought I should quickly bring this to your notice. You could just make use of this and in your workflow, and that is all for this tutorial, our quick tip. So if this was helpful, please give me a thumbs up, share the video and like it, and I really appreciate you guys. Once more, I want to say thank you for your time, and do have a wonderful day. God bless you. Bye.